Good morning, one and all. Myself, V. Pavan Kumar, working as an assistant professor in CSE AIML department from MLR Institute of Technology. Today, we are going to discuss about OSI reference model. So, in this video, I am going to clearly explain you the overview of an OSI model, and after that, we are going to discuss the functionalities of each and every layer. So, OSI stands for Open System Interconnection. If you see here, this is the full form of OSI, Open System Interconnection. This Open System Interconnection model is established in 1947. The International Standard Organization ISO is a multinational body dedicated to worldwide agreement on international standards. And ISO standards that covers all aspects of network communication is Open System Interconnection. It was first introduced in the late 90s. So, it is a 7-layered architecture which is used to transmit the data from one system to another system. So, this particular OSI model, Open System Interconnection, is being developed by ISO, International Standard Organization. So, what is the main reason for this particular OSI model is that if you want to facilitate the communication between the two systems, so we have a 7-layered architecture. With the help of that particular 7-layered architecture, you are going to establish the communication, or you are going to transmit the data from one system to another system. So, it is a 7-layered architecture. Now, I am going to discuss about this particular 7-layered architecture. So, what are the layers in this particular OSI model? So, mainly there are 7 layers. One is physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and application layer. Right. So, first, before going to functionalities of each and every layer, just we will have an overview of all the 7 layers. Then thereafter, we go for the functionalities of each and every layer. Right. So, coming to this particular overview of this particular every layer. So, coming to this particular physical layer. So, usually in any one of the layers, you should have some data transmission. So, how this particular data is transmitted? So, in physical layer, the data is transmitted in the form of bits. First point that you are supposed to remember is that data transmission is done in the form of bits. So, this is physical layer is responsible for physical transmission or physical connection between two systems. Physical connection between two systems. So, in this particular physical layer, initially the data will be transmitted in the form of bits, and it is used to establish the communication between the two systems. Physical communication or physical connection will be established using this particular physical layer. Whereas in data link layer, coming to this particular data link layer, the bits which were included in the physical layer will be converted into frames. The bits will be converted into frames in the data link layer. So, what are the some main aim of this particular data link layer is that reliable transmission. So, in this error free and reliable transmission. Reliable and error free transmission. So, this is the main aim of this particular data link layer. So, the frames in the data link layer are going to convert into the packets in network layer. So, in network layer, the data will be transmitted in the form of packets. The frames in the data link layer will be converted into packets in the network layer. So, the main use of this particular network layer is to transmit the data from source to destination by using different routing algorithms. So, here we will be mainly concentrating on the routing algorithms in this particular network layer. So, the data which is presented at the sender is going to transmit at the receiver in different paths. So, one packet may follow the same path or different path. It depends upon the kind of the algorithm that we are using, right? And so, this particular routing will be happen with the help of the protocols. So those protocols are included in this particular transport layer, and the unit in this particular transport layer, we call it as a transport protocol data unit. We call, in the short form, we call it as a TPDU, transport protocol data unit. So here we will be making use of some of the protocols like TCP, UDP. So these are some of the protocols used in this particular transport layer for transmitting the data from source to destination. So actually the packets will be transmitted in this particular transport layer with the help of this particular protocols, that is TCP. TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol, and UDP stands for User Datagram Protocol. So we will have a discussion about this particular TCP and UDP in the coming classes. For the time being, so you just know the abbreviation of TCP and UDP. So TCP means Transmission Control Protocol, UDP means User Datagram Protocol, and the best example for connection oriented protocol is TCP, and the best example for connectionless protocol is UDP. So these are the how the data is being transmitted in the transport layer. So coming to this particular session layer, so here in this particular session layer, the data will be transmitted in the form of session protocol data unit. We consider it as a session protocol data unit. So in the session layer, so the main aim of this particular session layer is that here we will have to establish the sessions to facilitate the communication between the sender and receiver. So establishing the sessions in the sense when the sender must speak, when the receiver must speak, that is, here we will be mainly concentrating on the dialogue control. We will be mainly concentrating on dialogue control and synchronization of bits. So if you want to establish the communication between the sender and receiver, this will be happen with the help of this particular dialogue control, right? This is the session layer. So the data exchange in the session layer will be session protocol data unit. In short, we call it as a SPDU. Next, coming to this particular presentation layer, in presentation layer, the data will be transmitted in the form of presentation protocol data unit. So in short form, we call it as a PPDU. So this particular presentation protocol data unit is a protocol that means the data unit exchange will be in this particular PPDU. So this particular presentation layer mainly concentrates on syntax and semantics. So syntax and semantics we will be mainly concentrating in this particular presentation layer. So what is a syntax? Syntax means structure of the data. Structure of the data. Semantics means meaning of the syntax. Semantics means meaning of the syntax. So this particular presentation layer, say for example here we are having the sender and here we are having the receiver. So sender will send the data and as well as receiver will receive the data and also it will send the data. So before sending the data and before receiving the data will be compressed. So here we will be mainly concentrating on the compression. And in order to protect our data from unauthorized access, we are not going to convert that particular data as it is. So we are not going to transmit the data in a plain text manner. So we are going to convert that particular plain text into ciphertext. So that is, here we are going to perform the encryption process at the sender side and decryption process will be done at the receiver side to receive the original plain text message. So compression means you are going to reduce the size of the bits. So in order to find the clarity, so we are doing all these are the activities that we are going to perform in this particular presentation layer. So coming to this particular syntax and semantics, what you are going to do is that, so I told you that in the presentation layer we are mainly concentrating on syntax and semantics. I told you that syntax and semantics. For example, I am taking one example. Why it plays an important role with respect to syntax and semantics is that So for example, I am taking as hang him, not leave him. So I place the comma after hang him, not leave him. So if you just replace this comma here and place hang him, not leave him. So what happens? The entire meaning is going to change. So you are going to what happens? So as the entire meaning gets changed, so it is going to lose the person's life. So that is how the importance here the presentation layer is about. And last layer is about application layer. So here application layer, it is going to provide the services that are required by the users. So application layer. So how you are going to exchange the data? Application protocol data unit. So here you are going to provide the services that are required for the user. Here we will be mainly concentrating on different kinds of services, and we will be making use of different protocols for, say for example, if you transfer the files, we will be making use of file transfer protocol. So we will be discussing about the DNS, domain name system. So all these things you are going to discuss in this particular application layer. So this is the overview of this particular 7 layers of OSI model. So I am writing here the transmission of the bits. See here, in physical layer the data will be transmitted in the form of bits. In data link layer, frames. In network layer, packets. In transport layer, TPDU, transport protocol data unit. In session layer, session protocol data unit. Presentation layer, presentation protocol data unit. Application layer, application protocol data unit. So this is the overview of all your 7 layers. Now we will see the architecture. So how the interaction takes place between each and every layers. So for example, this is device A and this is device B. So for example, if you want to facilitate the communication between these two systems, so how this process happens internally. So how each and every layer is responsible, we will see it. Right? In between two devices, we have an intermediate nodes. Right? So if you see that whatever the layers that we have discussed, whatever the layers that we have given about the overview of all the layers are included in this particular host A. For example, device A, that is physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer and application layer. So how the data transmission will take place is that in device A, the data will flow from higher layers to lower layers. That is, the data will flow in this particular direction. Right? That means it follows from top down approach. And whereas in device B, the data will flow from lower layers to higher layers. It flows from lower layers to higher layers. Right? So for each and every layer, there is an interface. Right? So what is this particular interface? So for example, if you take this particular interface between physical and data link, we call it as a 2-1 interface. That means, so the interface is being established between first layer and the second layer. So 2-1, what does that mean? That it represents the layer numbers. That's it, nothing other than that. Right? If you consider the 3-2, so it is an interface between second layer and the third layer. So what is the second layer? Data link layer. What is the third layer? Network layer. If you go for 4-3, so in the same way, now what is the third layer? Network layer. Fourth layer is transport layer. This is how the interface happens. Now what is the use of each and every interface? Right? So this interface is mainly responsible, it specifies what the lower layers are going to do for the higher layers. That means what lower layers is offering the services, how the lower layers are providing the services to its higher layers. For example, how physical layers is going to provide service to data link, and how data link is going to provide the service to network, and how network is going to provide the service to transport, and so on. This is because this interface specifies the services provided by the lower layers to higher layers. If you see this particular dotted, right, this we call it as a virtual communication. This we call it as a virtual communication. This we call it as a virtual communication that is being established between the peer layers. So what is this particular peer layers? We call it as a peer layers. Say for example, I'm telling the example of the peer layers. For example, the application layer in device A is a peer layer to the application layer in the device B. If the layers are at the same level in two different hosts, we call them as a peer layers. Got the clarity? Got the point? If two layers are at same level in two different hosts is nothing but peer layers. So the application layer of device A is a peer layer to application layer of device B. In the same way, the presentation layer of device A is a peer layer of the presentation layer of the device B, and so on up to transport layer. And the physical communication, this we call it as the entire process, this we call it as a communication subnet. How this communication happens, we will see by each and every layer. This we call it as a communication subnet, right? So in this particular relationship or the interaction between or the interface between these particular layers, you got the information regarding what is the use of this particular interface and what is the use of this particular what is this particular dotted lines represents. So what are the peer layers? So in order to facilitate the communication between two peer layers, each and every layer makes use of its own protocol, right? So this is how the process takes place. This is how the interaction takes place between the layers in the OSI model, right? So now we will have a discussion about the functionalities of the each and every layer. In the coming videos, we are going to discuss about the rest of the layers functionalities. Thank you.